Ever met a woman who turns every head the moment she walks into a room? Not because she's famous or flaunting diamonds, but because there's just something about her. A pull. A presence. The kind of woman who makes even the most distracted guy sit up and pay attention. Now tell me, how many men out there can honestly say that woman is their wife? That's my wife, Clara, right there. She didn't have 1 million followers on some app or a flashy job title, but man, wherever she showed up, she had this glow about her. You know what I'm saying, that kind of presence that makes you do a double take. And trust me, I saw it too. We tied the knot back when we were in our mid-20s, and now we're creeping up on 45. Met her in college, that's where it all started. She was this lively, talkative chick who could brighten up any spot she walked into. Me? I was the laid-back, keep-to-myself type. They say opposites pull each other in, don't they? At the start, things were solid, heck, better than solid, they were awesome. We had that fire between us. Then we got hitched, snagged a house, brought 2 gorgeous girls into the world. You know, the whole picket fence, suburban package. I punched the clock at a regular office gig. 9 to 6, decent paycheck, benefits, nothing to complain about. Clara mostly stayed home, especially when the kids were little. She'd pick up some side work now and then, maybe helping out an old lady down the street or grabbing random jobs whenever she felt like it. Our marriage? It was okay, I guess. That's the simplest way to put it, just okay. Nothing was falling apart, but it wasn't like fireworks every day either. We weren't one of those clingy, lovey-dovey couples, but we weren't at each other's throats either. We just kinda coasted along, raising the girls, keeping the bills paid, making it all click. The bedroom stuff was still going on, but let's be real, it wasn't like those wild early years. It had turned into more of a routine, same as everything else. Looking back, I reckon I missed the red flags, 'cause they didn't scream out at me, not right away. Clara started heading out more often. Sometimes she'd say it was for groceries, other times to grab coffee with a buddy, or just to stretch her legs with a walk. Didn't seem weird at first, pretty normal stuff. But those little outings, they started stretching longer. She'd stroll back in saying, "Oh, I bumped into this person," or, "The store was a madhouse." I didn't dwell on it much. We'd been married over 12 years, trust was there, you know. She was a solid wife, an amazing mom. Why would I second-guess her? But bit by bit, things started shifting. More evenings popped up where she'd roll in later than usual. More nights where I'd ask, "How'd your day go?" and her reply sounded like she'd practiced it in her head. Then the phone stuff kicked in, she was glued to that thing way more, texting away, grinning at it like some giddy kid. At first, I figured she was just chatting with pals or setting up a girls' night. But one time, I leaned over for a goodnight peck, and she flinched back, muttering, "Not tonight, I'm beat." It stung a little, but I let it slide. Folks get worn out, I was wiped too. Still, that phone kept buzzing. More texts kept rolling in, especially at night when we'd plop on the couch. I'd be zoned out on the TV, and she'd be lost in her screen, sucked into whatever was lighting it up. And it wasn't just mindless scrolling either. It was messages, lots of them. I started sneaking peeks, just curious who she was yakking with, but she'd snap that phone shut the second I got near. That's when this twist started tightening in my gut, but I kept brushing it off, telling myself, "Nah, you're overthinking it, man. Chill out." I didn't see how dumb I was being, till one night rest of sentence redacted due to content. I caught her whispering on the phone real late, thinking I was out cold. It was hushed, real quiet, I couldn't catch all of it, but I heard enough to know it wasn't her mom or some coworker. "I can't right now," she murmured. "He's still up. Maybe tomorrow." Sweat hit me like a cold wave. I wanted to storm in there, demand who she was talking to, but I just laid there, faking sleep, my brain spinning, trying to piece it all together. Was she stepping out on me? No way. Not Clara. She wouldn't pull that. Or would she? Next morning, it was like nothing happened. She was all smiles, getting the kids off to school, pecking me goodbye like it was any other day. But something felt off, like the ground had shifted under me. I couldn't shake this nagging vibe that she was hiding something. So I started watching closer, picking up on every little thing that didn't sit right. I got nosier too, asking stuff like, "Who were you on with last night?" or "Where'd you head off to today?" Nothing pushy, just casual. But she always had a smooth answer locked and loaded. "Oh, just a friend," she'd say, or "Nowhere special, just a walk." But it was special, it was everything. Then one night, it all blew open. I was tidying up after dinner, and her phone lit up on the counter. She was in the other room, so I grabbed it to pass it over. But then I saw the name pop up. Not her mom, not a girlfriend, it was some dude. Didn't ring a bell at first, but my gut screamed to check it. So I did, and there it was, flirty little messages, private jokes, winky faces. Felt like the room dropped out from under me. My wife, my kid's mom, the woman I thought I had all figured out, she was messing around. My hands were trembling as I set the phone back down, trying to play it cool when she strolled into the kitchen. Couldn't even meet her eyes. Things weren't as simple as I'd thought. For weeks, that gut ache kept growing, eating at me, but I couldn't nail it down. Yeah, I'd seen those texts, and sure, they looked bad, but part of me still clung to hope, telling myself it wasn't what it looked like. One day, we were out grabbing groceries, just a normal run, nothing big. I was pushing the cart while Clara wandered off down the aisles, hunting for something. As I swung around a corner, I caught a glimpse of this guy out of the corner of my eye, an old buddy from way back, Lucas, let's call him. Lucas was hovering by the shelves, but he was acting weird, kinda sneaky, like he didn't want anyone clocking him. He'd peek around, duck behind a display, like he was dodging somebody. At first, I thought I was seeing things. What was Lucas doing ducking around in a grocery store like that? I couldn't shake the itch to find out, so I ditched my shopping cart and strolled over to him. "Lucas!" I hollered, loud enough to get his attention. He flinched a little, but when he spun around and saw it was me, a grin spread across his face. "Hey, man. Been a while, huh?" We slapped hands and caught up quick, but something felt off-kilter. His cheeriness hit me like a forced laugh, like he was playing a part in some weird show. I shot a quick look around to check if Clara had clocked us, but she was wandering down another aisle, totally clueless. "You holding up all right?" I asked, fishing for clues about his odd vibe. "Oh yeah, I'm fine, totally fine," he shot back, but his eyes were bouncing around like pinballs. "Listen, I've been meaning to chat with you," he said, dropping his voice a notch. I cocked an eyebrow at him. "About what, exactly?" "Not here, dude," he mumbled, sneaking a peek over his shoulder. "How about we link up later? There's that bar by the strip mall, you know the spot. We can hash it out there. Tonight work?" I wasn't sold on this yet. Lucas has always been the loud, life-of-the-party guy, not this twitchy mess, and I wasn't thrilled about getting tangled up in whatever he was into. Still, the edge in his tone hooked me. He sounded desperate, and I'll admit, I was dying to know what flipped him like this. "Alright, I'll swing by," I agreed, though I wasn't all in. That night, after tucking the kids in and tossing Clara a line about running some errands, I rolled up to the bar. There was Lucas, parked at a corner table, a beer already sweating in front of him. The second I stepped inside, I could tell he wasn't the same jittery dude from the store. The nerves had melted away, he looked sharp, steady, like that whole grocery aisle scene was a bad dream. "Glad you showed, man," he said as I plopped down across from him. "I've been thinking about you lately." "Me?" I let out a little laugh, trying to keep it light. "What's that supposed to mean, buddy?" "I've been reminiscing about our old days, you know," he said, dragging out a slow sip of his beer. And I figured I oughta do you a solid. I leaned back in my chair, totally thrown. Do me a solid? I'm good, man, everything's cool on my end. He fixed me with this look, like he had some secret I hadn't cracked yet. Look, I'm not trying to weird you out, but there's something brewing you need to hear. Now he had me locked in. My gut twisted up as I braced myself for whatever he was about to drop. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a business card, and slid it over the table my way. I peeked down at it, some massage joint in town. Massage studio? What's this got to do with anything? I've spotted your wife there, he said, his voice dipping low, careful like. Yeah, so what? I shrugged. Clara hits up those spa places sometimes, facials, massages, the whole pampering deal. Nothing wild about that. Lucas shook his head slow. Nah, man, it's not like that. I mean she's working there. I blinked at him, brain scrambling. What are you on about? She's got no training for that, why would she be clocking in at a massage place? He let out a heavy breath, eyes locked on mine. It's not your standard massage gig, dude. It's a different setup. My stomach did a flip. Different how? Lucas squirmed a bit, but he didn't dodge it. It's one of those parlors, you know, where they offer more than just a rubdown. Extra services, off the books, for cash. I've seen Clara there, and I even talked to one of the girls who works the place. She said your wife's on some kind of loose schedule, popping in when she can. For a beat, I couldn't even speak. My head was spinning, refusing to process it. Clara, my Clara, hustling at a spot like that? No chance. It didn't add up. You're dead sure it was her? I finally croaked out, barely louder than a whisper. Lucas nodded, dead serious. I wouldn't mess with you on this, man. I saw her with my own eyes, and I double-checked. It's her. The bar started feeling like it was shrinking around me. My chest was thumping, hands ice-cold, and I had no clue what to do with myself. Clara, pulling shifts at a shady massage joint. For what, extra cash? Was that what all her part-time gigs really were? Questions were piling up, but answers. Not a damn one. I'm sorry, man, Lucas said, polishing off his beer and standing up. I just figured you had a right to know. I stumbled out of the bar in a fog, like I was sleepwalking. My wife, the mom of my kids, mixed up in something like this? What the hell was going on with my world? Lucas's words kept looping in my skull, Clara, at a place like that? I couldn't get a grip on it. Part of me wanted to storm home and lay it all out, but I stopped myself cold. What if Lucas got it twisted? What if there was some simple explanation? If I came at her guns blazing and it was all wrong, I'd torch everything for nothing. So I decided, no confrontation, not yet. I had to see it for myself. Next day, when Clara headed out for one of her errands, I sat tight, watching the clock crawl. Every tick felt like forever as I wrestled with the chaos in my head. After about 30 minutes, I snatched my keys and drove straight to that massage place Lucas had pointed out. Stepping inside, it looked normal enough, clean, quiet, nothing screaming, sketchy. The lady at the desk flashed me a friendly smile, like I was just another guy walking in. Can I help you today? She chirped. Yeah, I fumbled, anyone free for a massage? She glanced at her list and nodded. Yep, we've got an opening. If you'd like to head in and get settled, someone will be with you soon. I followed her lead, heart hammering as she took me to this dim little room, soft music humming, lavender wafting around. I peeled off my shirt, paused, then figured what the hell, stripped down completely, and laid face down on the table. What was I even doing here? I still wasn't sure I wanted to follow through. A couple minutes later, the door creaked open, and a woman stepped in, not who I was expecting, though. She was older, way older, pushing late 50s, maybe 60s. She didn't say a word at first, just started slathering oil on my back, kneading into the knots. It was straight up normal, and I let out a little breath. Maybe this was all fine. Then she piped up, "So, what are we doing today? Therapeutic, relaxing, or you looking for something a bit more special?" My whole body locked up for a second. There it was, the hint Lucas warned me about. I swallowed hard, playing it cool. Yeah, maybe something extra. She stopped cold, didn't say a thing, and slipped out of the room. My pulse was racing now. What had I just signed up for? A few minutes later, the door swung open again. This time, it wasn't the older lady. A younger woman strutted in, late 20s, tight leggings, tank top, the whole deal. She flashed me a sly little grin, like she knew exactly what I was here for, and without a peep, she got to work on the massage. Her hands glided across my skin, but this wasn't like that first rubdown. Nah, this was gentle, drawn out, intentional. The air in the room thickened fast, like someone flipped a switch. I ain't gonna spell it all out, but it didn't take long for me to realize this wasn't just about loosening up my shoulders. It wrapped up exactly like I dreaded it might, and, here's the kicker, I didn't pump the brakes. Nope, I rolled with it, let the whole thing play out, and while it was happening, I couldn't lie to myself, it felt damn good, way too good. When it was done, I pulled my clothes back on without a word. I slipped her the cash, threw in a fat tip, and strolled out the door like it was just another Tuesday. But deep down, everything had flipped upside down. The second I hit the fresh air outside, guilt slammed into me like a freight train. I just stabbed Clara in the back, done the exact thing I was scared she was doing to me. I'd stooped to that level, and I didn't even have the full story yet. If Lucas had it wrong, if Clara wasn't tangled up in this joint, then I'd just torched something sacred for no damn reason. My head was a mess, I couldn't string two clear thoughts together. The ride home blurred by, my brain spinning like a hamster wheel on overdrive. What the hell had I just done? And bigger than that, what was my next move? I pulled into the driveway, and the house was dead quiet, Clara still out, kids at school. I slumped down at the kitchen table, hands trembling a bit as I tried to unpack the mess I'd made. Was this what Clara was up to behind my back? Or was I just losing it, letting my paranoia shove me into a dumbass decision? Either way, one ugly fact stared me down, I wasn't clean anymore. Later, I sat in that shadowy room at the parlor again, dim light stretching creepy fingers across the walls, my heart thumping so hard I could feel it in my throat. I'd rehearsed this showdown 1,000 times in my head, but now that it was go time, nothing felt solid. My fingers drummed a nervous beat on my knee, the quiet pressing down heavier every second. I still couldn't wrap my head around being back here, the massage parlor, her supposed gig. The last 24 hours had dragged me through an emotional meat grinder, rage, pain, betrayal, and now, sitting there waiting for her, it was all boiling into this sour, antsy feeling. Last night had cracked everything wide open. I'd waited till Clara was out cold, her soft breaths filling the bedroom, then I went for it, snagged her phone. Yeah, I know some folks would call that a low blow, a privacy gut punch, but after Lucas's bombshell and what I'd seen, I was past caring. I had to know what was real. My hands were shaky as I swiped through her texts, and bam, there it was, like a kick to the ribs, messages with the massage parlor. Shift schedules, VIP client bookings, it was all laid out. And it wasn't just business talk. Those texts got raw, spelling out exactly how to keep the big spenders happy, what they were shelling out for. Reading my wife's words, seeing her packaged up like some product for sale, turned my stomach. But that wasn't even the worst of it. Nah, the real gut twist came when I found his messages, Ethan. At first, he was just a random name popping up, no big deal. Then I dug deeper, and it hit me like a sledgehammer, he wasn't just some John. There was warmth in their chats, a softness, hell, affection. They weren't just setting up quick meets. They were texting late into the night, cracking jokes, flirting like teenagers. Each message carved a deeper hole in my gut. This wasn't just cash for Clara, she was into this guy. It wasn't only physical, it was heart stuff, too. I wanted to chuck her phone at the wall, wake her up screaming, let it all rip right there. But I held it together, barely. If I lost it then, I'd never get the whole picture, and part of me, crazy as it sounds, still couldn't buy it completely. Maybe there was a twist, some way it wasn't as bad as it looked. I needed proof I could see, not just read. So here I was, back at the parlor, waiting to catch Anna, that's what they called her here, in the act. The clock dragged on, then finally, the door squeaked open. Clara stepped in, eyes glued to the floor like she was prepping for another random client. She hadn't clocked me yet. When she lifted her head and our gazes locked, she went stiff as a board. She froze right there, color draining from her face as it sank in. I wasn't some stranger looking for a special. "Dubbish, what are you doing here?" she stuttered, her voice so faint I barely caught it. I didn't budge. I just stared her down, letting the silence stretch, till it felt like it'd snap. Then I spoke, keeping my tone low and even, though the anger was bubbling right under the lid. "Why don't you tell me, huh? Or should I start calling you Anna?" She blinked hard, her mouth flapping open and shut like a fish out of water, scrambling for something to say but coming up empty. She was trapped, and we both knew the game was up. "We need to talk about this," she finally squeaked out, her voice wobbling. "Talk." I snorted, letting the sarcasm drip. "Talk about what, exactly? How you've been feeding me lies for who knows how long. How you've been slinking around behind my back, working this joint, servicing clients." My voice climbed with every word, spitting out clients like it burned my tongue. Clara edged closer, hands up like she could wave off the storm. "It's not what you think," she started, but I wasn't buying that crap. "Not what I think?" I snapped, jumping up from the table. "I know damn well what this is, Clara. I've read the texts, VIPs, special massages, what the hell's going on with you?" Her face crumpled like I'd slapped her, the weight of how much I knew hitting her hard. I was gonna tell you," she stammered. "I didn't want it to go down like this." I barked out a harsh laugh. "Tell me." "Oh, that's rich, when were you planning that? After another night of bullshitting me? After another shift here, pretending you're out buying groceries?" Tears pooled in her eyes, and she opened her mouth to argue, but I steamrolled right over her. "Nah, you know what? It's not just the cash, is it? It's not just the job, it's him." "Who's Ethan, Clara?" "Or Anna, I guess." She flinched like I'd swung at her. It's not what you think," she whispered, voice cracking apart. "Bullshit," I shot back, done with the excuses. 4. My voice came out icy, like it didn't even belong to me anymore. "You've been chatting up this Ethan guy, I saw the texts, Clara. You're head over heels for him, huh? I would sneak up on him, get close to him behind my back." She shook her head fast, tears spilling down her cheeks. "No, I swear it's not what you're thinking. It's messy," she choked out. But I was done listening, my temper was a volcano now, erupting all over the place. "Messy?" I bellowed. "Nah, Clara, it's crystal clear. You've been feeding me lies, cheating on me, heart, body, I don't even know what's what anymore. And for what? Some creep you hooked up with in this dump?" She was bawling hard now, but it didn't faze me one bit. I'd unloaded everything I had bottled up, and without another word, I spun around and stormed out, slamming that door so hard it rattled the frame. But as I marched out of that sleazy joint, fury still blazing in my chest, I knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot. There was one more move I had to make, something to cap this off. Stomping away from that room, my pulse still hammering from the blowout with Clara, I was a walking fireball. The lies, the betrayal, it was all too damn much, and my head was spinning with it. I couldn't just walk away and call it a day, not after everything I'd uncovered. I wanted her to feel the weight of this, and not just her, I wanted that whole rotten setup to crash and burn. Right before I hit the exit, something snagged my attention. A fire alarm button, sitting pretty in the hallway, like it was begging me to push it. I flicked my eyes around, nobody was watching. The receptionist had vanished, probably off kissing up to some big-shot client in the back. I didn't hesitate, I smashed that button. The place exploded into madness right on cue, that shrill alarm screaming through the walls. In seconds, the receptionist bolted toward the rear, yelling about clearing out. Perfect, they'd be too scrambled to clock what I was up to next. I hustled over to the front desk, where a laptop sat wide open, practically daring me to dig in. I plopped down, fingers flying across the keyboard, my heart pounding harder than ever. This wasn't just about Clara anymore, it was about torching this whole filthy operation. I wasn't stopping at ratting her out, I was gonna bury the whole damn place. After a few frantic minutes, I struck gold, customer files, tucked away in some innocent-looking folder labeled, Client Records. I clicked it open, and there it was, names, numbers, appointment logs, the works. These weren't just random Joes popping in for a back rub, nah, these were heavy hitters, big deal types with clout. I couldn't believe the names staring back at me. I whipped out my phone and started snapping pics of the screen, catching every last detail. It took maybe a minute, but it felt like I was moving in slow motion. Just as I was about to bolt, I spotted another folder, staff. I popped it open, and jackpot, employee dossiers, photos, schedules, every woman on the payroll, including Anna. I snapped shots of that too. If this ship was sinking, I was dragging every soul down with it. I slipped out of the building, blending into the crowd spilling out from the alarm chaos. The mess worked like a charm, nobody batted an eye at me, just another guy shuffling out with the herd. But I had the goods now, enough to kick off a wildfire that'd burn it all to ash. Later that night, once I'd cooled off a bit, I knew who to hit up. There's this journalist buddy of mine, old pal with a knack for sniffing out dirt, especially when it's tied to rich, powerful jerks. He'd toppled some giants before, and I knew he'd drool over this scoop. I shot him a quick text, got something juicy for you. Huge. Call me. When he rang, I spilled it all, kept Clara's name out of it, though, that was my own mess to wrestle with. But I laid out the parlor gig, the VIPs, the shady extras, and handed over the stash I'd swiped. Told him to hold off for now, I said, but once the cops bust in, blast it wide open, names, details, the whole damn circus. He went quiet for a sec, then said, this is gonna piss off a lot of folks, man. But I'm in. I hung up, satisfied. Next part was a breeze. I dialed the cops, kept my voice hushed and rough, masking it as best I could. Anonymous tip, gave M the spot, the illegal crap, the fancy clients, even hinted at how deep the rabbit hole went. Didn't drop Clara's name, this was bigger than her now. 10 minutes later, I was parked a block away, watching cop cars swarm in, lights flashing, officers piling out, charging the door. Chaos all over again, but this time it wasn't a fake out, this was the real deal. The next few days were a tornado. My journalist pal lit the fuse, and once the raid went down, he dropped the bomb. Story hit the wires like lightning, headlines screaming about the parlor's true colors, a prostitution front for fat wallets who thought they were untouchable. Not anymore. The client list went live, and the fallout was instant, politicians, CEOs, even a couple local hotshots, all getting dragged through the dirt. The owners? Hauled off in cuffs within days. Cops dug up the whole mess, shady records, cash under the table, years of buried services. That operation got ripped to shreds, and the folks running it were staring at cell bars. I should have felt some kind of win, maybe a smug grin for getting even. I torched the place that gutted my life, and everyone tied to it was paying the price. But sitting there, thumbing through the news on my phone, raid updates, arrests, all of it, there was just this empty pit inside me. Clara, Anna, whatever she was now, she'd been part of that world. And no matter how much I smashed down around me, no matter who I dragged into the wreckage, one thing was clear, nothing was ever going back to how it was. The aftermath hit hard and fast. Once that story splashed across the news, there was no stuffing it back in the box. There was no way Clara, or Anna, as they knew her, could dodge the truth anymore. That leaked client list, the cop raid, the whole operation getting ripped open, it was too big for her to sidestep. This mess wasn't just buzzing around town anymore, it had legs, spreading far beyond our little corner. Folks I hadn't heard from in ages started blowing up my phone, digging for dirt, wanting to know if the gossip about my wife was legit. At first, I clammed up, didn't want to spill my guts to anyone. It was too fresh, too personal, like a wound I didn't want poked. But the cat was already out of the bag, and pretending otherwise wasn't gonna rewind the clock. Friends, neighbors, even some work buddies caught wind of it through the leaks. Her name didn't scream from the headlines, but the whispers. Man, they spread like a brushfire on a windy day. People couldn't shut up about it. Our old crew, the ones we'd shared beers and barbecues with for years, dropped her like a hot potato overnight. They were floored, couldn't wrap their heads around it. Some hit me up, wide-eyed, asking if it was really true, still reeling from the shock. Others didn't even bother with questions, they just turned on her, no hesitation, no mercy. I couldn't tell if they were grossed out by what she'd done or just scared of getting tangled in the scandal's stink. Either way, she was persona non grata in their books. Clara turned into an outcast, and I could see that judgment piling on her like bricks, crushing her bit by bit. Me? I was mostly numb through it all. The divorce went quicker than I figured, maybe 'cause she had no way to play innocent after the lid blew off, or maybe 'cause I was hellbent on closing that chapter fast. We didn't bicker over much, it felt pointless, like we both knew the ship had sunk. She tried at first, cornered me with apologies, explanations, the works, but I wasn't biting. I'd already drawn my line in the sand, her whys didn't matter anymore. The betrayal cut too deep for me to give a damn about her side of the story. We wrapped up the divorce on the down low, and as far as I was concerned, that was curtains, I was done. No looking back, no stewing over what went down or how I'd hit back. Sure, exposing it all, getting that revenge, gave me a little kick for a minute, but it didn't patch the hole, it didn't wipe away the sting of being double-crossed by someone I'd trusted for years. Once the papers were signed, I made up my mind to move the hell on. I buried myself in work, kept my days packed, and started piecing my life back together, one brick at a time. I wasn't about to be that guy, the one who lets a busted marriage define him. I had too much road ahead to stay stuck in the rearview. And you know what? Things started looking up. It was slow going at first, like crawling through mud, but then it hit me all at once, that heavy cloud I'd been lugging around started to break apart. I linked back up with some old pals, hit the town more, and made damn sure my kids knew they were my number one. No matter what went sideways with their mom, I'd be their rock, always. Life got a little brighter, like I could finally suck in a full breath without bracing for the next punch. I wasn't jumping at shadows anymore, paranoid about what else might be hiding out there, I'd faced it all and come out standing. People kept asking how I was holding up, probably expecting me to be a bitter wreck, drowning in resentment. But I wasn't, I'd tell them I was good, better than good, and I meant it. I'd weathered the worst of the storm and was stepping forward now. As for Clara, no clue what she's up to these days, and honestly, I don't give a rip. We're out of each other's orbits, and that's how it's gotta stay. Word from some mutual folks is she's trying to hit reset somewhere new, but shaking off that kind of baggage ain't easy, her name's probably toast for good. That's her load to haul, though, not mine. Me, I'm doing solid now, got a new groove going, fresh goals, and a sharper take on what really counts. The anger's gone, I don't sit around chewing on the past anymore, I've let it loose. So, if you're reading this, wondering if life bounces back after a gut punch like that, yeah, it does. It wasn't easy, and there were no shortcuts, but step by step, I found my rhythm again. I found me. And to those who stood by my side through it all, thank you. Truly. I'll never forget it. As for the rest, life moves on, and so do I, with more strength, more clarity, and a whole lot more hope. Wishing all of you the best on your own journey. Keep going, you've got this.